Hi, this is Ron Tanner from vanadventures.com, and today we're going to talk about overnight parking, camping someplace other than a campground. Obviously, the first, safest, easiest place is a rest stop along the highway, but you might have missed the rest stop, and rest stops are few and far between, so what do? Well, the next alternative is to find a Walmart parking lot, and that's where I am right now. It is the unofficial company policy of Walmart to allow RVers, van campers, truckers to park overnight in their lots. The supercenter Walmarts actually have security patrols all through the night, so it's really safe. The regular Walmarts do not have security patrols. Keep this in mind, not every Walmart observes this policy. Some managers of Walmarts prohibit overnight camping because the Walmart might be in an unsafe area, or they just don't want the hassle. So you have to be mindful of that. If you can't find a rest stop or a Walmart parking lot, then you're looking for something else. This is called stealth camping. It is hiding in plain sight or hiding in deep sight to get away from any hassles. You just need a safe place to park overnight. Can be tricky, and there's some things to keep in mind about that. So let's talk about those details. When you're looking for a place to park, obviously you want to observe signs like this. On the West Coast, you can be fined about $200 if they catch you parking in the streets. And they'll have a sign posted on the city streets about that. So look for those. Something like this is actually in a Walmart parking lot, probably because they've had prostitutes and other things going on, in their lot. But in a case like this, they're not going to be able to take your rig away when you're sleeping in it. They'll knock on the door, they'll say you'll have to move. That's usually the worst case scenario. So it's not a really big deal. But my point is, first of all, look for signs. The most logical place to park in a city is in front of a business that's open 24 hours, like a gym, like a big box store, someplace where there are going to be a fair number of vehicles, and no one can tell whether your vehicle belongs to somebody who works inside or you're just somebody who's shopping inside. Generally, it's a safe bet. Obviously, you don't want to be in a lot where you are the only van. You're too vulnerable there. A suburban neighborhood like this one is not going to be a welcome parking place because the neighbors know whose car belongs to which house. The neighborhood is much too spread apart, and the parking generally in a neighborhood like this is in the driveway, so any car on the street is going to be the object of some attention. The best neighborhood to park in a city is usually an upscale, older neighborhood that has a lot of parking on the street. When there's a lot of parking on the street, none of the homeowners can tell which car belongs to which house because, for instance, you could be visiting, or if your van looks like mine, it could be a repair vehicle, it could be, a contractor's vehicle. Now, the other thing to keep in mind about parking on the street is that you do not want to make your van look like someone's sleeping in there. So you don't put up your nightshade like this. Instead, I fill the front two seats with junk, and I make it look like a junky van. I make it look like someone's just parked his junky van there, and he's going to leave in the morning. And you can't tell whether or not I'm sleeping in there because all I've done is I've just drawn the curtains behind the seats. So it looks like it could be storage space behind the curtain, or there could be somebody sleeping behind the curtain. But when you look in the front windows, what you see is just a bunch of junk, clothes and shoes and stuff. And it's just hard to tell what the purpose of that van is. And it does not look attractive, does not look like it's something that anybody wants to break into, number one. My strategy when parking in the city is always to park late at night so that I arrive after everyone else is parked so that there are very few eyes on the street, and then I leave very early in the morning. No later than 7, but usually at 6 or, dawn or even before that. And then I can go park anywhere in the city, some shopping center parking lot and take care of my business. But parking on the street is purely for getting sleep and hiding among the other parked cars. That's all we're doing there. We're not setting up camp. Finding a place to park in the country is actually more difficult than finding a place to park in the city. Remember that every piece of land that you're looking at in the country is owned by somebody. So the best option for us is to find public land. Almost always private land will be posted with no trespassing signs, and never, ever defy no trespassing sign. The last thing you want to do is to encounter a trigger-happy farmer with a shotgun. Both the advantage and disadvantage of parking in the city is that there is always somebody nearby. The disadvantage and the advantage of parking in the country is that there is seldom somebody nearby, which means that you are alone, which means that your number one strategy for parking off the road in the country is to find a place to hide. Mainly what we're talking about is just staying out of the way of mischief makers and crazies. I've been van camping for decades. I've never had a problem, never had any crazies, but all it takes is one time. So we want to play it safe just to be sure. We've just pulled off of a National Forest Service road. This is a national forest. This is not a national park. This is not a state park. Now, national forests will have lots of access roads for logging, and we're on one of those roads. Now, if you're looking for a place to park, and say it's late in the evening, maybe it's nighttime, look for these little roads. They're very hard to find, but if you're looking for them, you will find them. And we found this one. It is unmarked, and that's very important. There is no signage here that prohibits parking or access, and you want that kind of road. If the road says no access, don't go down that road, because if a park ranger finds you, he or she will fine you, will give you like $100 or $200 fine for being back there. So this is an excellent example of that kind of road. Now notice that I am parked nose out. I am nose facing the main road so that I can get out of here really quickly. We're not going to set up camp here. We're just parking for the night. First thing in the morning, we're back on the road. The main thing is you're parking here to get a good night's sleep. My priority list for finding the best place to park is as follows. Number one, I always go to higher ground rather than lower ground. At lower ground, you're more vulnerable to water issues. That could be flooding, could even be flash flooding, could be mud puddles, lots of things like that. I just prefer to be on higher, drier ground. Second, because you're on a higher ground, you have usually a good view, a better vantage of the surrounding landscape. I just find it to be a more pleasant experience to be up high as opposed to going low. Also, if you're up high, you can hear the approach of other vehicles. Again, another important point. You just want to be aware of where you are and what's going on in your surroundings. Number four, it takes people more time and more trouble to go higher rather than lower. So there again, you're reducing the chances of running into somebody else. And when I'm off the road, I'm not unsociable. It's just that I'm just very careful about where I am and who I interact with. When you're camping off the grid in the country, you should observe some protocol. Number one, make no impact on the landscape. Leave nothing behind. Because what we're trying to do as van campers is to show people who own this land that we're parking on that we're okay, that we won't do anything bad to the land. We won't leave our trash. We won't leave our poop. We won't make fires. Let me talk about fires for a moment. They are so incredibly dangerous in the far west. Absolutely, under no condition, make a fire. It's not worth the risk. If it gets out of hand, you could ignite hundreds, even thousands of acres of wildlands. It's just not worth it. Everything you do with regard to cooking should be inside the van. Now, here's a campsite I found in California after I was closed out of every campsite I tried. And this is often the case in California particularly, but in the far west, you can get closed out of campsites very early, all up and down the coast. So I had no option but to off-road, went up a dirt road as far as I could go. It was getting dark, and I saw this pull out, and so I took it. Now, just after the sun set, I heard a car approaching from below. When I hear a vehicle approaching, I watch and wait. I don't usually get out of my van. Usually the vehicle passes. I mean, I've been on mountaintops where kids on ATVs have been roaring by. I just stay in my van. 99% of the people are not going to bother you. But in this case, the vehicle stopped in front of my vehicle. Its headlights were on my vehicle. At that point, it's kind of a standoff. Keep in mind that, a camper van can be very scary for people when they see it on their property. Now, I didn't know that I was on this guy's property. I mean, we're talking about a mountain. This guy owns mountains. So I got out of my van, but I also had my dog. And so I let my dog out as well. People are much more relaxed. They don't think you're the Unabomber if you've got a dog. So I got out with my dog and I greeted him. He finally rolled down his window and he said, "This is my property." And I said, "I'm very sorry. I've been closed out of all of these campsites. I just pulled off here. And everything I do in the van. It's totally self-contained. The bathroom is in the van, all of that." He said, "Well, it's fine. You can park here as long as you do not light a fire." And again, that's a very scary thing for people who live in the West, are fires. So I said, "Absolutely." And I thanked him profusely. And then he went on and left me. But this is a reminder that two things. One thing is that you're always on somebody's property, no matter what you think. And I thought I was on a county road. The second thing is that you can ask somebody for permission. If it's clearly somebody's property and there's a house nearby, you can just go up there and say, "Hey, I'm a camper vanner. I'm, really desperate for a place to park," and offer somebody, $10, $20 or so. "Can I give you $20 and just park back here behind the barn or something?" Nothing wrong with that. Two more tips before I leave you. The first is, if you are parked in deep cover, aim the nose of your van to the road and leave nothing outside the van at night when you go to sleep. I don't want to be real paranoid about it, but you want to be prepared. So for instance, if a bear comes after your van at 4 in the morning, you want to be able to hop in the driver's seat and take off. The other tip is that, again, if you're in deep cover, put up your nightshade, but reverse it so the fabric side is facing out. That way there's no reflected light, but you're able to turn on a light inside the van. That's it for Camping Off the Grid. My name's Ron Tanner, and our website is vanadventures.com. Check us out for more resources and subscribe to us right here on YouTube. Thanks a lot, and good luck with your van adventure.
It's a wonderful world.
Here you go. Low, go snow.
I've got more than my share. Baby, I must be lucky through and through. It's a wonderful world.